Hey, what's going on everyone? Curtis here. Welcome back to the Amazon Soldier channel. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell notifications. That keeps you guys up to date with any future content that we release to this channel. In today's video, I have some awesome, exciting news for you guys. This is something that you've been waiting to hear now for a long time if you're an Amazon FBA seller. And if you're somebody who's looking to get into Amazon selling, then this is some awesome, excellent news for you as well. Today, Amazon has announced that they will be accepting shipments to their FBA warehouses for non-essential items. That's right, they have lifted the restriction of the non-essential items, and the FBA centers are open for all categories now. Sellers can send in anything and everything. If we remember back towards the end of March, Amazon came out and said that they were going to put a hold on everything except a couple key categories, and they would not allow sellers to send in anything except items that fell under those key categories. Those categories were grocery, beauty, health and household, pet products, industrial scientific, and I believe that was it. But it was just those 5 or so main categories. So the purpose of today's video is just to make everybody aware of actually what happened. We'll talk about why it happened. We'll talk about some great learning points on how we can mitigate our risks in the future. So if something does happen to Amazon like this in the future, we're very well prepared for it, and we're still going to be able to make some cash flow, okay? And we'll talk about what we learned from it. Ultimately, every big event in our lives, there's always something that we can learn from it. So we're going to talk about some of the things that I learned from it, some of the things other sellers have learned from it, and ultimately, it's just going to be able to make your Amazon business that much stronger in the future, and again, mitigate any risks that you could potentially have when it comes to making money on the Amazon platform in the future and beyond, okay? So let's talk about how this whole thing really started, okay? Let's move my bubble over here. So let's think back here now towards the beginning of February, let's say. COVID, or the coronavirus, wasn't very well, or wasn't talked about all that much in the beginning of February, right? In the United States and Canada, it wasn't really something that it wasn't spreading rapidly at all in North America. As the cases became more popular in the United States and in Canada, the number of cases began to grow. This started to take place towards the end of February, beginning of March. That's when the onset really happened, and it was well known that coronavirus was in North America and that it was starting to spread. So people started to panic. People started heading to, well, first the grocery stores and the local retail stores, and they started buying up all kinds of items that they thought were essential, items that they thought would be useful if we were stuck in quarantine, or if we were stuck inside for a long period of time, right? Toilet paper, non-perishables, a lot of food items, those sorts of things, right? Basically survival items. People thought here in Canada and the United States that we were going to model countries like China and Italy, where they had to go into quarantine and the cases were really going rampant in the countries, right? A lot of the population thought that things were going to follow that sort of pace, so they feared the worst, right? And I don't blame people. They headed to grocery stores, and they headed to online, and they started buying a lot of things. Eventually, the things ran out in the stores. A lot of the heat was placed online to fulfill those orders, and that's when Amazon started receiving, thousands and millions of more orders than they usually do. This put a lot of extra stress on the FBA program. Amazon promises some really, really tight shipping windows, the 1-day and the 2-day prime. So they weren't actually able to meet those deadlines for the longest time. They started pushing them back, weeks and weeks. And then they just said, hey, screw this. Let's take a step back here and focus on what's really important. So they shut down, well over half of their business just to focus on the essential items. the items that were deemed essential for survival, essential for, life, basically. Things like baby products, baby diapers, beauty products, grocery items, ultimately. So that's what Amazon really focused on, and they phased everything out. Rightfully so, right? They just focused on what was important. They cut out all the other non-essential stuff, things that were making a lot of noise but weren't really aiding to the coronavirus. So I don't blame Amazon. Very smart decision on their part. And, it only took them, 6-7 weeks to really work out all the kinks and get things back to normal. So it's all great that this thing is, past us, well, on the Amazon side of things, and things are starting to go back to normal for our Amazon businesses. And that's all great. But it's very important to remember what happened and not forget what happened. And it's very, very important to sit down and try and learn from what we've experienced as Amazon sellers. Like I said, it's all great that everything is back to somewhat normal on the Amazon side of things for our businesses. And now we can go back and, try and send in those items or those things that we had placed on hold, try and send in those items, sell them on Amazon FBA. That's great. And most likely you'll just be able to go back right into your old routines, ordering your toys, ordering your video games, selling them, and just doing business in your regular channels. But smart, intelligent sellers will sit down and they'll try and think about ways on how they can expand their business and leverage what they learned during this pandemic, and ultimately just make their business that much more bulletproof for when something like this happens in the future. So what are some things that we can do to learn from this so we don't get screwed over in the future? If, another virus breaks out, let's say in a year from now, and everything goes back to, worse, let's say, than what it is now, and Amazon has to start fulfilling orders again like they are, they're going to shut down the non-essential categories again? Are they going to limit it only to the essential items? Who knows, right? So what are we going to be able to do to diversify for the future? First thing we can do is diversify and expand out to other product categories. So let's just say you were a seller that only sold in the video games or the toys or the electronics. I strongly recommend that you go out and try and get relationships going with suppliers that carry grocery items, or try and go out and break into the beauty categories and try and start sourcing beauty products to sell in your stores. Why not go out and try and source some pet products, right? We now know that Amazon considers those categories the essential categories. So we now know if something happens in the future where Amazon is going to be relied upon to fulfill orders like that to the population, we know that they're going to definitely focus on essential items above all else. So yeah, definitely just go out and try and source items that fall under the essential category, just in case something happens in the future. And it's always a good idea to have these essential items stocked in your store anyway. These are key drivers. People are always going to be on Amazon sourcing and searching for beauty products. They're always going to be buying grocery products or snack products, those sorts of things, right? So there's always a demand, there's always a driving force behind those products. So definitely try and source those types of products for your store. Again, you also want to go out and try and find new suppliers to stock these products. New suppliers are going to carry a wide variety of new products, some products and brands that you probably have never even heard of. So it'll give you some great exposure in that way, right? Another great thing that I learned from this pandemic is how important merchant fulfilled is. Before this pandemic, even last year, 2 years ago, we were doing merchant fulfilled items, but not on a scale like we did during this pandemic. We did rely heavily on video games, toys, electronics, housewares, those sorts of categories. So we weren't able to send in a lot of our stock. So we had to put a lot of our stock on hold. So what we did, we started opening up merchant fulfilled listings. We started merchant fulfilling all the things we couldn't send into Amazon FBA, and we started merchant fulfilling a lot more of the items that we can get access to and that we are selling in FBA. So we really kicked up the volume and kicked up the sales velocity on that side of things. And we were able to sell quite a few units through the merchant fulfilled process. So anybody who hasn't actually experimented with merchant fulfilled, strongly recommend that you get yourselves familiar with it. There's not, to be honest with you, there's not that much involved with it. And it's a great way to add extra sales to your account, even during just regular time. It doesn't have to be a pandemic or Q4. Just you can turn on merchant fulfilled and just have that going. That's an extra 15-20% growth on your sales right there, minimum, right? So merchant fulfilled is a great way to diversify, win some extra sales, and really strengthen your stores for any future pandemics even, right? Another thing you want to try and consider doing as quickly as possible, and again, it's not just because of the pandemic, it's also something that you should really consider doing. It's great business practice, and that's getting yourselves on multiple other selling channels. There are a lot more channels out there than just Amazon. However, Amazon is the biggest. There's channels like Walmart that's coming up and emerging. Walmart's even looking at getting their own fulfillment centers set up. So Walmart fulfillment, just like Amazon. So we know in the next couple of years, Amazon is going to be a big player in the e-commerce game or the fulfillment game. So Walmart's an option besides Amazon. We have eBay that's been around for decades. That's always been an option. There are other third level marketplaces like Mercari, Poshmark, platforms like that. Up here in Canada, there's even Best Buy, so we can break into that. Sellers who are only selling in the United States can also sell here in Canada. I know that's kind of relying on Amazon, but again, it's getting out and diversifying. So the moral is you want to get out, get on as many different platforms as possible. So if something happens to one of them or your account goes down on one of the platforms, then you have 2 or 3 other platforms that are taking in additional sales, okay? COVID-19 was a great learning experience. Anybody who got to go through this as an Amazon seller now has earned a little badge on their shoulder, right? This is something that you've gone through. You're going to be able to tell younger or newer, inexperienced Amazon sellers what you've been through. And it's just something that's going to go down in history, right? Never has this happened before, to the best of my knowledge. So it's definitely an interesting, unique experience. Let's just hope that it doesn't happen again. But if it does, I'll definitely be prepared for it. And that was the whole purpose of this video. So I hope that you'll take what we're saying into consideration and try and plan for the worst in the future. So e-commerce was already on track to phase out brick and mortar. The coronavirus definitely just 10x'd that process, right? Over the last couple of years, e-commerce has been making some big moves. They've been closing down some big giants like Toys R Us, Target, Sears, and they're taking names, right? They're just smashing up brick and mortar businesses. And e-commerce is just really dominating the battleground, right? And coronavirus just sped this process up phenomenally. People are always going to remember this, and it's forever going to change the way people react in public. When people go out and try and go about doing their normal day-to-day shopping at least for the next year, they're going to be super health conscious. They're going to be worried about what they're picking up. They're going to be checking out the people next to them to see if they're cleanly or not. They're going to be really cautious about the social distancing, the 6-foot rule, and they're just not going to feel comfortable in brick and mortar stores anymore, right? They're going to see brick and mortar stores as a breeding ground for bacteria or viruses, and it's really going to put a level of fear in people. I personally think, and a lot of other e-commerce experts are saying the same thing, that this whole coronavirus pandemic is just pushing people the other way and pushing people towards the e-commerce boat, right? It was already happening. Like we said, we've seen it in the media over the last number of years now. We've seen it in the headlines where a lot of the famous brick and mortar stores, chain stores, are closing down or going bankrupt. You watch after this COVID-19 thing starts to pass and a lot more things start coming out in the media, you're going to start seeing a lot more businesses going bankrupt and closing down, right? So all that means is there's a lot more opportunity going to be taking place online, on Amazon, on all the other platforms, right? As these brick and mortar stores start closing down, people still need to get these products from other places, right? They still need to buy these products. They're just going to head to platforms like Amazon because that's obviously the biggest platform out there on the internet, and they're going to head to the other platforms to get their products, right? So e-commerce is definitely making some leaps and bounds because of this coronavirus. Any brick and mortar store who is surviving this is definitely scrambling now and looking at getting their business online, trying to get their products and services featured online. You know, it's probably not always going to be a product, maybe it's a service, but people who have physical products are definitely going to want to get their products featured and listed on Amazon for one. So anybody who is experienced with Amazon and can help physical brick and mortar store owners get their products and services listed and featured, offered online, they're going to be very valuable and of service over the next couple of months, next couple of years, because believe me, as I'm saying this, there's going to be hundreds and thousands and millions of brick and mortar store owners wanting to get their products online, right? Small brands are going to want to shift out of brick and mortar. They're going to want to go online, and anybody that can help them, there's going to be a tremendous opportunity. So make sure you keep your eyes and keep your ears open for those types of opportunities because they're going to be out there by the hundreds, okay? Anybody who doesn't want to switch to e-commerce, then they're just going to get left behind, and it's going to be a sad story for those guys. No excuses, guys. Amazon is literally now wide open for items. You can make shipping plans for anything. There's no excuses. Let's see those sales. I want to see those screenshots. I want to see those crazy numbers. I want to see you guys sell like it's Q4, okay? If you guys need any more information or any more help selling online, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you want to stay up to date with awesome content about selling on Amazon, any news about Amazon, the latest tactics about selling your products on Amazon, make sure you're subscribing to the channel, okay? Turn on the bell notifications. That keeps you guys notified when we release content just like this video here. The next thing you guys need to do if you want to grow your Amazon stores is to go and join our Facebook group. Okay, guys, there's going to be a link at the bottom of this video in the description on how you can do that. Just follow that link, join that Facebook group, and start mingling with the other sellers, start mingling with the other people in there, and get your questions answered, okay? If you need any more information at all about selling online, we do have a training online as well. I know a lot of people like the training. They kind of shy away from the paid stuff. I get it, totally understand. The reason why we have a paid training is because it is the resource to go to get all the information about selling on Amazon. I'm not saying the YouTube channel isn't great. It's phenomenal. It's just scattered everywhere. Some people like to learn differently. Some people like to have everything laid out in front of them step by step so you can follow along, and that is what the training is for. So if you're interested at all, make sure you head over to www.amzsoldier.com to check out the training. Really enjoyed this video, guys. I will see you in the next one.